Oh, konnichiwa. Xing Pao, King Tai Sanko Frankai Shao, Mingagala Shenko Ha Xing Tai. Which means, hello and welcome again to Frenchy's Forge. Xing Pao Kao Sound King Kai, which means in this episode, we'll be knocking off these pins with the bandsaw. Translation, Xing Tai Kupa Sankai. Aha. In all seriousness, though, we're back with another episode. And in this episode, we're going to be shaping this here handle. And we're going to be removing this here tape and putting an edge on this here knife. So thanks for checking back in with me. And let's get this sucker rolling. All right, so step one, turn on the bandsaw, and we're going to trim off these pins. Now these are some form of metal. I don't think they're stainless. I think they're just maybe mild steel. So they're probably going to get hot, and I'm thinking the bandsaw is going to be the best way to just knock them off. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. All right. I have a special guest.
Hello.
In Frenchy's Forge today. It's my brother Nunk.
Howdy doody.
All right. So now that we have the pins knocked off of this thing and we're flush on the side of the scales, our next step is going to be taking it to the belt sander to basically go around the profile of the handle to knock off the extra material sticking out above the handles. Yeah. So you can tell that even with just going a little bit, you can see here that it really does bring it back to the metal pretty quickly. Alright, so now that we have taken off all the material and gotten it back to the profile of the metal, hopefully it'll zoom in where you can see that. Get it down here in the light. Basically just bringing it back to the metal. We are now ready to basically start thinking about what kind of profile we want to put on this. It's still really thick and beefy, and there's still spots in here that the camera would focus. There we go, you can kind of see that anyway. There's still spots in here that need some more attention. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. I was actually just out here trying to figure out a good profile for this thing. I'm actually on YouTube right now checking out this video. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's a video that Eric from the Rivers Experience just posted not too long ago, and he's kind of going through the process of shaping a hidden tang handle, and he's kind of explaining how he's profiling the back of it. Anyway, this knife turned out incredible. The handle especially it's almost like sculpting out of wood. So you know, we have a whole bunch to do to get there, but that's kind of what I want to try to do with this. I think what we're gonna do is, before I just start winging it and mess this up, I'll probably take a piece of just scrap wood that I have. I'm gonna go ahead and real quickly just trace out kind of like a mock-up of this handle. I'll cut it out on the bandsaw, and then I'm just going to use this to practice real quick. Alright, so now that we've taken a second to cut out basically like a mock-up of this handle, and I think it's relatively close. They're about the same width. This one might be a tad bit wider, but it's pretty darn close. And then also basically the side profile is pretty much similar. So I think this will be good to just kind of mess around with and practice before we start doing this one. So we spent a little bit of time just kind of shaping this out along the back, and I'm pretty well happy with the way that it went. I only took a couple of minutes to do this, so it's by no means perfected or shaped perfectly, but what it does do is it gives me a sense of kind of how the process works. Seeing it on the wheel and then pulling it off and looking at it now makes sense. It's basically to the shape of the wheel. And putting your hand up here definitely gives you a good idea of kind of that stopping power that it will have in the back. And we're going to be shooting for a couple of fingers towards the bottom to kind of give you that sort of a seated grip. So I think what I'll do is probably spend a tad bit more time kind of shaping and rounding this out a little bit, and may even spend a little time kind of trying to fade up the front just to get some sort of an idea of how it'll feel when it's done. But I think that this is a really good idea to do, especially if you're doing a new process that you don't have experience with and that you haven't tried before. There's nothing wrong, I think, with taking a couple of minutes to cut out a scrap piece and giving it a go. The last thing you want to do is just see something on YouTube and be like, wow, that was great. You know, I'm going to try that on the knife that I'm working on, and then jump into it before you have an idea sort of how it works or what you're trying to achieve and how to achieve it. So. Alright, so with just a little bit of extra time spent kind of messing around with this makeup handle here, it's obviously not perfect, but we do kind of get a better feel for what this could potentially turn into here. So, yeah. Alright, so we basically have the little half moons put into it now, and I think for the most part they're relatively even. So we're starting to kind of get that shape that we're looking for on the back side, where the fingers are going to sit pretty well. So really, it's probably just going to be a matter of continuing this pattern up a little bit more. I'm really looking for the two fingers here, and about where they come to is right in here. So I'm really looking for this particular area really to kind of have that moon all the way up until about this pin, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to keep going at this. Spend a little bit more time kind of widening these out some. And then we'll probably work on tapering up this front. Okay, so now that we have the bottom shaped in, we also went ahead and hit the top, and that's kind of given us that that shape that we're after, the Coke bottle shape. But basically, now that we're here and we put it in our hands, we can tell that we're starting to get close to the bottom, to feeling right, and we're starting to develop this thinner area for the top of your hand. Really, just to bring you up to speed, all I have done, just like on the practice one, is basically set it up here and try to get a better shot here so you can see, but we're basically sitting it up like this to where let's see, hold on a second. We're basically putting it up on the contact wheel to where this line on the top is level with the top of this, right? So we're not bringing it straight in. We're kind of keeping it like this, and that's what's developing this angle right here, which is good. That's kind of what we want. That's what we're after, because it kind of helps bring this down into the palm swell. So basically that's all I've done though, is basically hit it on the wheel on this side. I tried to be really steady and turn it over and find the right angle and hit it on this side. And then I've done the exact same thing with the knife flipped around, where I'm trying to focus on keeping the top of this line level with this, not where it's like this or too far over, but basically just like the other one was, where it's pretty much level there. And that's what's kind of given us this, basically like a mirrored image. So it's shooting down this away, and then it's shooting back up at an angle this away. So we'll have a bit of a thicker section on the top here, or a longer section of thick material, I should say. There's a kind of a good shot of it. You can kind of see it's longer back here than it is down here. So, and that's that way on both sides. But yeah, that's basically where we're at. And I think for the most part it's going pretty good. Like I said, just kind of taking our time with it. And we're going to continue to go through and start to knock out these corners, make sure we got a nice good round area under here for the finger, and then just keep on going and see how it feels as we go. So I'll cut it back on once we knock some of these corners off, and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so this is about where we're at now. We have basically that Coke bottle profile ground into it. And now that we're to the point here where we're pretty much getting close to the final shape of things, I'm basically just going, putting my hand on it, kind of, you know, feeling, okay, where is it sticking out in my hand that's uncomfortable? I'm trying to figure out where I still need to take a little bit off. Basically where I'm at with that right now, this bottom part is turned out really well. My hand sits in the bottom of it super great. I think what we need to do now is just focus on taking basically a little bit more out of this section. We're basically going to just kind of taper it a little bit more up till about this point here, and we're going to take some of this beefiness out of this spot to help your front hand kind of still get around. It's still a little bit too big right there, but really what we're doing now is just using, I'm over here on the oscillating spindle sander, and basically just taking my time up here in the front and thinning out this section. And I'm not really too worried about the final the curves over all of it. It's still really rough right now. We're going to have to go back and hand sand everything. So at this point, I'm really just focused on kind of making sure it feels good in my hand. And we're pretty close. We just have a little bit more to go in this section here. So it's definitely an interesting handle concept. I mean, I could see how it probably wouldn't be good for every knife. But for something like this, that's going to be a big chopper that you're swinging hard on, definitely worth considering doing this style. Like I said in the beginning, that's kind of what we were going for, was just something basically towards the end here that, you know, really sits in the back of your hand when you're swinging. So I'm going to go through and thin this section out just a little bit more, and then we'll get it back on once we're probably close to hand sanding. Alright, so we have now made it to pretty much the final stopping point before we start hand sanding. We basically, you know, still were able to keep kind of the Coke bottle shape on the handle, but we were able to thin this section down enough to where you could get a really good grip around it, and then your last couple of fingers fit right here in this little groove, and yeah, basically makes for a really good grip. Here's kind of a side shot of it where you got your two fingers here, and then they kind of break over this point where your other two kind of come down. It just it's really, really comfortable. So I think it turned out pretty good, honestly. Now all we have left to do is to basically go through, starting with a pretty low grit, probably start with 180 or 220, and work our way up hand sanding the wood, and also hand sanding basically the profile of the metal, and we'll work our way up through the grits, probably go to maybe like a 400, 600, somewhere around there. Alright, so we just finished hand sanding. We brought this up to about 400 grit. Took the tape off and gave it a once over. It turned out really well. It's a really, really cool knife. It's a big blade, and it's got a really good grip. Something I know I'm going to be able to swing pretty heavy and hard without worrying about it wobbling around in my hand too much. So yeah, pretty pleased with the way it turned out. The only thing we have left to do now is to run it on the buffing wheel. We're going to load up just kind of a soft cloth. I basically have, all I have is just this little tiny one right here. So, you know, compared to this, it's kind of slow going, but we're going to basically just load that up with some green compound in hopes that it can get some of that grain to kind of pop out at you. So we'll give it a go and see what it looks like here when it's done. Yeah, so that's just a few quick passes with a little bit of the green buffing compound, and you can see that the grain is starting to pop out of there. Here's the side that we haven't done yet, so it's still a little dull and you know, not quite as shiny. So that green buffing compound really helps to bring out the grain of the wood, which is really cool. So we're going to finish doing that, and then the only other thing that we have left to do on this before we put it to a test and chop up some big watermelon is basically putting an edge on it, and then we'll be ready to chop some stuff. Alright, so we are ready to sharpen this blade. I am not going to be sharpening it by hand. I have done that in the past, just kind of freehanding that secondary bevel in. I'm using this system that I picked up from Tyrell Knife Works. It was kind of his concept to have a bar come over the top and utilize like a clamping system here to basically just drag the knife across the belts. So I'm going to go ahead and use that to put an edge onto this knife. So as you can see, when I'm pulling this across, especially with this recurve blade, I start by kind of putting it at an angle this way and going at an angle through this valley of the knife. So we have this little dip in here before we get to the belly. This system I feel like is really good for like straight edged knives, but for knife with a recurve in it like this, it's a little bit trickier. You just kind of have to kind of swoop it down like this until you get to the belly and then rock it back out. So I'm sure you saw that in the last clip, but just kind of wanted to explain that. Alright, we just got done running through the 1000 grit belt and stropping it on this little leather belt with some polishing compound. The reason why I like this system is the secondary bevel from start to finish is very even. It's about the same width, it's the same angle all the way down on both sides. That's a really good shot of it there. The shiny part that you can see is the secondary bevel, and it's very consistent on both sides. And so trying to sharpen it freehand, it's doable, but especially with a lot of knife like this one and with the curves, it's can be really difficult to get it to, you know, look really even and good. That's why I like this system here.
天台西木库库拉生开很好，形态
Which means the knife is done. We got this puppy razor sharp, and I think we're gonna
chop a watermelon.